Hello, my dear viewers. Today is March 10th, our traditional review of the events on the front lines of the Ukrainian war. So now, let's analyze what's been happening on the line of contact for the last 3 days. My latest review was on March 7th, which I conducted from Sochi. So, what's the status in the Avdeevka sector now, one of the main regions? The enemy keeps sending reserves here, trying to quench the thrust of our train with counterattacks, and it's the first run. This is done near Berdichi, for instance, not in the area of Tin Irlovka. I've already explained why. Because for the foe, the loss of Orlivka, Todenki, and even the territory slightly to the west of these settlements is not critically important. For them, for the sustainability of their defense, the critical part is the loss of the village of Ocheretin, which is practically the next Zabadichi. If you look to the northwest exactly, from here along the watershed, it's very convenient to proceed to the rear like a new defensive line, which the enemy is trying to build further to the west, to the northwest of Donetsk, against the enemy. So, in the rear of the Torres grouping of the enemy, it's a very painful point for the enemy, no less painful than Chasov, for which, as I said in previous reviews, the enemy will fight to the end exactly here. That's why the main reserves are being thrown in this direction. Exactly here, the enemy is trying to counterattack, to knock out our troops from Berdicha along the... For these past 3 days, he's been trying to do just this, simply troops marching in thick crowds. Sometimes tanks are used, even aircraft that the enemy still possesses. However, the enemy can't manage to displace us. Now, the current situation is this. Yes, the western outskirts are under enemy control. The eastern ones are ours. The center is no man's land, a gray zone. But I repeat, the enemy is desperately trying to move us from these positions. Our forces are holding strong in Badichi, preparing here for an upcoming offensive operation, and then we plan to push the enemy back in the region of Orlovka and Tonenka. All the enemy's counterattacks here have been repulsed over the past 3 days. We are gradually pushing the enemy in this direction, putting him in a very uncomfortable position here. That is, the situation looks something like this. The enemy is throwing quite large reserves here. So far, it has not brought him any serious success, but he has so far been quite successful in holding back our offensive here. I can't tell you yet whether he has enough of these reserves, because so far he is throwing them there. Well, again, as I said in previous reviews, if he takes these reserves from somewhere, it means that they're taken from somewhere else, and this allows us to move forward. We see this not only in the area of Tiny Orlovka, but also a little bit to the south in Krasnohorivka, where over the past 3 days, our troops have been expanding their presence in the southern and southeastern parts of the city. In general, we have already reached the line of the refractory plant, the brick factory in the south, in the southeast. Our troops have taken control of the Dhaka area, and from what I understand, they're gearing up for a major attack on this city, which really needs to be prepared primarily in terms of firepower. Industrial facilities at this very refractory plant are being destroyed, including with 1.5-ton bombs. A vigorous bombardment of the enemy's positions is underway. We're bombing everything that can be targeted there. The artillery is also working extensively, and we're waiting. I believe that in the near future there will be an assault attempt here, a major attack on this settlement. I really hope with a positive outcome for us, and the same as for another significant direction. This is the Chasov direction, where the enemy also attempted to resist our offense with their reserves. This was successful for them for a while. They even managed to counterattack. Having exhausted their reserves in this area, they are now slowly retreating. In the last report, I mentioned their units had already moved beyond the Ivanovskoye territory, in which our troops have been steadily establishing control over the past 3 days. They are gradually taking the village into control. There have also been successful strikes in the area of Bogdanovka, and there have been tactical successes there. Battles are continuing, with the main confrontations taking place between Ivanovskoye and Kleshcheka. These battles are proving to be very challenging. The enemy has slightly retreated, but they are preventing us from securing new positions. They are making extensive use of unmanned aerial vehicles. They are also deploying reserves, which is why we are not able to advance rapidly here. The same is the case for the battle for the hill between Bogdanovka and Ivanovskoye.